Hey guys, Matthew here once again, and quite recently I've been playing with a Starforge. So as you may have seen in the last couple of videos, I did get a Starforge drop off of Shaper, and they're not too costly at the moment. They were going for something like 1 to 1.5 exalts, more like 2 exalts at this point, and for something this strong I thought that was criminally underrated. So went ahead and made my second ever Starforge character, and the goal behind this one was moving really fast. So it is of course a raider, and we're doing quite a lot to get decent movement speed, and the main factor there is of course Queen of the Forest with quite a lot of evasion stacking, 10 frenzies, so I did have to buy a few corrupted items and all that, and essentially I just wanted to move really fast after my last character just to scratch that need for speed itch, and I'd say we've definitely delivered here. The character ends up being somewhat of a beefed up Namahu Cycloner. So the Namahu Cyclone based around the Namahu axe, it's pure fire, and it's a pretty good build on a budget for sure. This one goes a little bit beyond that in budget terms, and it does seem to deliver more DPS, more speed, and overall a nicer build. Now the only real issue is Cyclone AoE has been somewhat nerfed. Ever since the AoE changes, Cyclone really did not like those by the looks of it. I've gone fairly heavily out of my way to get enough area or weapon range and all that, and the Cyclone AoE still feels a bit bullshit. This is the demonstration of the Cyclone AoE throughout these videos, and as you can see, it's not that great, and that's with quite a lot of investment too, as we have 20% area on Starforge using Duresu's Salute, got +1 weapon range on the passive tree, from the sword nodes, +2 from the duelist nodes. There's quite a lot of area as well as area gem, and yet it still feels kinda terrible, so you're never really going to hit those same Cyclone clear speeds that we used to back in the day with almost full screen Cyclones. That said, I've compensated with it for decent DPS and really fast movement speed, and it's created a fairly decent character once again. Though not at the levels of previous Cyclone, it does still give you a good enough feel for the build, and it still feels worth playing to me anyway in this sort of setup. So I'll go over real quick everything, or the key items to make a build like this function and work as well as it does, and hopefully in the future a few more endgame examples of boss kills and map clears, as well as final comparisons to other Cyclone versions. So the weapon we're using, for those unfamiliar, is Starforge. Drops off of Shaper, has a buttload of physical damage, some good life, good area, and cannot deal elemental damage, so generally you're going to scale it with some bleed and poison sort of stuff, and for the most part we didn't even use poison up until you know, like level 85, tier 10 plus maps, because before then it's not at all necessary and you don't really even need, you know, additional cheesing DPS. It's just all pure melee attacks, and Cyclone DPS not very impressive, but we attack really fast, we move really fast, and when you get it buffed up with your frenzies it like doubles quite easily, and there's much higher ceilings for the build the more you invest in it, like a Sin's Rebirth for example, like 6 links for both of our links, but currently we're on a somewhat of a budget version, and if I have to I will invest a bit more just to get smoother boss kills in the end game. So what we're building around here is Raider. I had a real desire to go super fast on my next character, and I decided to do Raider Cyclone with the Starforge sword. So we get 10 frenzies, meaning there's an extra, what, 20% movement speed here, there's a whole bunch of movement speed here and here, and then movement speed here. Now we went Avatar of the Veil just because it's pretty damn easy to get you know, status immunity here and then free up some flask nodes and all that, and in the end we grabbed a Queen of the Forest. Though it's not necessarily the best chest for the build, it is for the movement speed. It gives 1% increased movement speed per 450 evasion. Now fully buffed, which is almost all of the time, our evasion sits at 39,000 currently, which is almost 100% additional movement speed. Get a Stibnite Flask on top of these as well, and then yeah, we'll be sitting at quite a comfortable 100% evasion, and that's really nice for the movement speed. So our movement speed modifier right now just in town is 180, with frenzies and with a Vile Haste it goes up to like 250, and it's almost too fast. At a certain point I do get too much too much movement speed, especially if you pick up certain things like an acceleration shrine. It gets just completely insane. So in any case, that's basically the basics of the character. It's really not too complicated. Like I did mention, I grabbed a Duresu's Salute for this build because it's pretty damn good. I really feel like we need the weapon range at this point, +2 here, and +2 here and +1 over here, and even with all of that, the Cyclone AoE is kind of underwhelming at this point. It's playable, but it's nowhere near as good as it used to be. The build itself kind of travels all over the tree, going up to the right and up to the left, getting Resolute Technique, getting Valpact. We have the Leech over here for our build, and it's pretty survivable. It's pretty tanky because we have something like 70% evasion, 40% dodge, with the option to go for phase acro, and as well as that, I'm running at Series Step. So 6k life ends up going a really long way with this build, and we haven't been dying almost at all on anything because it is fairly damn tanky, and with a Stibnite, like I mentioned, which we'll probably get soon, will become quite tanky indeed. Everything else is fairly straightforward for gear. We're just going for life and resists and all that. It's nothing too special. Did go at Series Step because I could get a +1 Frenzy Charge pair for 30 Chaos, so that was fairly easy, instead of, say, Dark Ray Vectors, because I really felt like I wanted the life as much as I could all over the place, because otherwise we're only going to have something like 5k life if we really make too many compromises. So in the end, Starforge performs pretty damn well. Compared to Disfavor, I think it should have more DPS according to Path of Building calcs, and should probably end up being more than Namahu. At least it clears faster than Namahu front-loaded damage, but not so sure about single target yet. We'll find that out soon. Now, something else to mention is I am using melee damage on full life, and that is because as a raider I don't use Blood Rage. So your life is almost always at 100%, given that you leech quite a lot, you have a lot of evasion and dodge, and Valpact. The life is almost always 100%, so that is a really nice multiplier for us, for both our main skill and our War Chief. And the last thing I'll mention for the character for now, I believe, is I'm using Poison Gem supports instead of Snakebites. So you may ask, why no Snakebite? You're a raider. Basically, Poison, there's not too much you can really add to Cyclone in the end to increase its DPS for melee Cyclone. So Poison, in this case, is actually a pretty damn good gem, and it means we don't have to use Snakebites, which cuts the duration of our frenzies and makes it quite uncomfortable at certain times, as well as gaining life and resists on our gloves, and a little bit of melee damage. In the end, Snakebites are barely worth using. They're like a small DPS upgrade over using a Poison Gem. Even if you replace Poison Gem with Void Manipulation or faster attacks, it still ends up being pretty damn competitive for damage to have Poison instead of Snakebites, so I've chosen to go the non-Snakebite route. And you may ask why no added Chaos Gem. That's also because we don't really scale too much Chaos damage or general damage for Chaos in this sort of build, so the added Chaos Gem would hardly get any multipliers, and it's not very solid for the build. In the end, we have the links here, they're on the left hand side, and the next best link is either faster attacks or Void Manipulation, but it would go a long way to get that 6th link. I believe Snakebites are probably only going to be worth it if you're going for a pure Lacerate sort of feel for the build, because that one really does want as many gem links as possible, whereas Cyclone isn't very gem link heavy. So we can easily afford to use Poison, which is still a decent support, as I mentioned. The only real issue I'm running into this build right now that I will share with you now is Mana Leech. So we have Mana Leech on our ring, and just a small percent is all you need, and it's what I have. But the problem comes into effect when we have our reservation completely taken up. We have 200 unreserved mana, and when you spin several times on the same spot, you can easily yourself, which happens quite a lot against boss fights. What you're supposed to do, if you're also struggling with a Cyclone build like this, is make much longer sweeps so that you have time to then leech your mana back up before the next hit. Like I said, the problem comes into play when you make several short sweeps, and that happens a lot when you have really fast movement speed like we do here. In any case, it hasn't been too much of an issue, but something like a Val Clarity may see its way into our build in the future. So for now, I think that's all I'll say on the build. I'm going to be tackling Guardians and Uber series and whatnot with it pretty damn soon, and hopefully in the next video have more conclusions about how worth it is and if it's a good use of your Starforge. For now, thank you very much for watching and see you next time.